In this part, we're gonna work on the profile tab. So let's go to the profile section, and let's also open the file, this one. And for this screen, I'm just gonna copy the entire style sheet, and let me just paste it here. And I'll show you these styles whenever I use them, so you guys just copy these styles. Let's import these variables: spacing X, vertical scale, then spacing Y, the colors, and let's see, we need to import the radius. Okay, so let's just remove this, and here we need to create a container view. Let's give it a style of container, and inside this we're gonna use a header component to show on top of the screen. So for the container, we have the following styles: flex 1 and a padding horizontal. Now let's create a new component for the header. Let's create a functional component. Let's save it, and let me just import it here. Okay, so we're not able to see it because the text is black. So let's go into the header and change this to typo. There we go. So this component will receive some properties. We will have a title for the header. By default, it's going to be an empty string. Then we can pass a left icon, and then the style object if we want to override any styles. And this will have header props from our types file. And these are all the properties for the props. So you can just copy them. You can even add the right icon if you want, but I decided to remove it. So let's add the style. By default, we will have the container styles, but we also want to have the styles from the parent component. So let's just define the container styles here. Let's remove this, and here first we will show the left icon. So we will make a condition. If we have the left icon, then we will create a view, give it a style of left icon, and then inside this we will display the left icon that we passed from the parent component. So let's define the style here. Okay, this should be left icon, not icons, like this. Now after the icon, we need to display the title. So we need to make a check. If we have the title, then we will show a typo component and render the title inside. And let's add some properties on this. We will have a size of 22. Then font weight will be 600. And for the styles, let's align the text into center. And we need to add the width for this component, but this will be dynamic based on if we have the left icon or not. So let's make a condition. If we have the left icon, then it will have a width of 82%. Otherwise, it will have a full width of 100%, like this. So what's the issue here? Oh, okay. So this should be 82%, like this. And let's save this. Okay, so now before we start designing these components, let's pass the title from the parent component, and the title should be the profile. Let's save this. So there we can see the profile title. Now let's go into this component, and here we need to specify the styles. So it will have a width of 100%, then align items into the center, and the flex direction will be row, like this. And then for the left icon, it will have align self to flex start, so that it will show on the left side of the header. We will use it mostly for the back button, but for this component we don't really need it. And just to show you a demo of how it will look, let me just add a back button for this header to see how it will look. Let's save this. So this is how it's going to look, but we will use this for the models. So let me just remove this, and we need to add some padding, margin vertical. So let's add margin vertical of spacing Y 10. Let's save this. So now it's looking good. Now after this, we're gonna add the user info. So let's add a comment, and let's add a view. Give this a style of user info. And for these styles, we have these properties. So you can just copy these styles. Now, first we're gonna add the user avatar here. And let's create a view and leave it empty for now. Then we will have the name and the email of the user. So let's create a view and give this a style of name container. And for the name container, we have the gap and align items to center. Okay, so inside this, let's create a typo. And here we need to show the user name. So let's import the user from use auth hook and show the user name. Let's save this. So there we can see the username. Now let's design it and give it a size of 24 and a font weight of 600. And then let's also change the color to neutral 100 like this. And let's save this. Okay, so let's copy this one more time for the email. And this will have a size of 15. And let's remove the font weight. And for the color, let's change this to neutral 400 and change this to email. Save this. Okay, so this is how it's looking. Now we're gonna add the user image in this view. So let's add a comment here, user image. And for the user image, we're gonna use the Expo image component. This is the library from Expo which provides caching as well. So it will only load the image once from the URL and then it will show the loaded image from the cache. So very useful library. So let's just install it. Here is the command. Let's just copy this and paste it into the terminal. Okay, now let's run the project. And we need to reload the app. Okay, so now let's use this Expo image to show the user avatar. If we type image, it's not auto importing. So let's import the image from Expo image library. This is the one. Okay, so let's use this image and give it a source from the user.image, which is null for now. So style will be styles.avatar. And for the avatar, we have these following styles: align self, background color, height, width, and the border radius. So you can just copy these styles. Then let's give it a property of content fit as cover. This is the resize mode property on the image component from React Native. Then transition of 100 milliseconds. So let's save this. And there we can see a box which is not an image, but we need to create a function that will fetch the image or the default user avatar. So let's call it get profile image and pass the user image property. Now we need to create an image service in the services folder that will handle all the file and image services. And inside this, let's create a function as get profile image. And this will receive the file property of type any. And first we need to make a check if we have the file and the type of the file is a string. So that means it's a remote URL. So we are just gonna return it. But if the file is an object, so if the type of the file equals to an object, that means it will have a URI property, which will be the location of the file. In that case, we will return file.uri. But if both conditions are false, then we will return a default URL. And we have default avatar.png file into our assets. Let's save this and let's import it here and see if it's working. So currently user.image is null. So that's why we are seeing the default user avatar. Okay, so now we need to create an account options array to show the options in this screen. This will have a type of account options type. We have the following properties: title, icon, background color, and the route name, where it will take if we click on any route. So this will be an array, and let's define each option. It will have a title of edit profile. Then we're gonna add an icon from the phosphor icons. So let's import all the icons from phosphor react native like this. And we're gonna use the user icon here. So icons.user, this will have a size of 26. Then it will have a white color, and then the weight will be fill. So let's close this, and then let's define a route name property. So this will be the page name where it will navigate if we click on any option. And for this page, it will be models/profile model. And then we're gonna have a background color property. Let's define this color. What's the issue here? Okay, we need to remove this. Okay. So we haven't created this page, but we will do that in a second. Now let's copy this a few more times for other options. And then on the second, we will have settings. And this will have an icon of gear 6. And let's just comment the route name for this one because we're not going to have a page for the settings. And let's change the background color. This one will be privacy policy. And the icon will be a log. And let's also comment the route name for this one. Let's change the background colors to neutral 600 like this. And the last one will be logout. And this will have an icon of power. And let's also comment this and the background color to this one. And let's save it. So now we need to render these options after this view. So let's create a comment here, and then let's create a view, give this a style of account options. So for the account options, we have the following styles for the margin top. Then inside this, let's map through all of the account options. This will give us an item and the index for the item. And let's return a view. And here, let's just add a typo. This will render the title of the option just to see if it's working. Let's save this. So there we can see all the account options. Now let's give this view a style of list item. And for the list item, we have the following styles. We have just the margin bottom just to have a gap between all the items. Then let's remove this, and here let's add the touchable opacity and give this a style of flex row. And for this one, we have flex direction, align items, and a gap. I want to show the icon and the title in a row. So let's add the icon, and let's add a view, give it a style of list icon. And here we will have item.icon like this. And if I save it for now, you can see all the icons that we added for each option. And for list icon, we have the following styles. So you can just copy these styles. Okay, now we're gonna add a background color so that each icon will have a different background color, and we defined this background color on each account option. Let's save this. So now we have different background colors for each option and it looks good. Now let's add the title. So typo and give this item dot title. Let's save this. There we go. And let's give it a size of 16. a flex 1 so that it takes full space, and then the font weight of 500. Let's save this, and it's looking good. Now I just want to add an icon on the right side of each account option. So let's add the icon of caret right. This will just show that it's clickable and it's an option. So size will be vertical scale of 20, and then weight will be bold, and color will be white. So let's close this and save this. There we go. So the UI for this screen is almost complete. We just need to add some animations for these list items. And for that, let's change this view to animated.view. And here I'm just gonna add a property as entering, so that when this renders, we will have a fade in down animation. Let's add a delay using index. We're just gonna increase the delay using index multiplied by 50 milliseconds. Then they will animate one after another. But I also want to have a spring motion in this animation. So let's use springify, and let's use damping of 14. And when I save this, we can already see the animation and it looks cool. Now let me just reload the app to see the animation again. And okay, so we need to remove this error. We need to provide a unique key for each item. So let's add a key. Let's use index and change this to string. Let's save this. Let's reload the app again. And let's go to profile. There we go. So the animations are working. Now we need to make these options functional. So let's create a function that will trigger when we click on this touchable opacity. So on press, we will have a handle press function. We need to pass the item. So let's use it like this and pass the item as well. Now let's define this function here. This will be an async function, and this will receive the item. Let's use account option type. Okay, this needs to be an arrow function like this. Okay, so here first we need to check if the item dot title is logout, and in that case we're gonna show an alert to the user. So let's use a function show logout alert, and let's create this function here. Okay, so actually we don't need to make this async. And here let's use the alert from React Native. This will have a title of confirm, and the message will say, are you sure you want to log out? And then we can provide an array of the options at the bottom. So let's add an object. So the first button will say cancel. And then when we press on this function, this button, this will just console log cancel logout. This is actually a function. So let's change this to a function like this. And this will have a style of cancel. Now let's have another object for the logout. The text will say logout. And when we click on this button, we're going to trigger a function handle logout, which we haven't created yet. Then the style will be destructive, so it will show as red. Now we can define this handle logout function here, or we can just copy this from the home screen that we have already. So let's just paste it here. We need to import the sign out method from firebase/auth and auth from our Firebase file. Let's save this. So now when we click on this button, it shows a warning, and if we click cancel, we see cancel logout. But if we click on logout, the user is logged out and we move to welcome page. So let me just log in again using my account details. Okay, so now we can just remove this because we are not using it anymore. Let's comment this function and this button as well. Let's save this. Okay, great. Now we're gonna work on the edit profile model. So when we click on this, it should open the model. So let's go to profile, and here we need to handle the navigation as well. So let's make a check if item.route name exists. Then we need to define a router. So let's define a router, use router from Expo router. Then it will just navigate, it will just push this new route using the router like this. Let's save this. Now we need to create this model slash profile model. So we need to create a new group as models. Let's create a new folder in our app folder. And inside this, let's create our profile model. Let's create a functional component. Save this. And to make it model, we need to define it as a model in our stack layout. So let's add a new screen here, stack.screen, and give this a name as models slash profile model. And here we can define some screen options. So let's have a property as presentation as model. Let's close it and save it. Okay, so now when we click on edit profile, it should open a model. So okay, so we have seen this before. Let's just reload the app. Sometimes it does that when we add a new page. So there we go. So we can see the profile model. So let's go to the profile model, and here let's open the model. And here I'm just going to copy and paste the entire style sheet for this component like we are doing before. So let's import these variables, vertical scale, and then the scale and spacing X. Okay, so here first we need to import our screen wrapper component. Let's save this. Okay, so it's pushing the content a bit down. We don't want that. So let's create a new component for our model wrapper. Let's create a functional component, and this will receive the style and the children and the background color. By default, it's going to be colors.neutral 800 like this, and this will have the type of model wrapper props. And if we go into the types, we have the following properties, so you can just copy these from here. Okay, so let's give this view a style of container, and then we're gonna have a background color which we passed from the parent component. Then the styles from the parent component, if we want to override any styles like this. Now let's define the container property here, and let's remove this and render the children here. So let's save this, and now we can use this in the profile model. So let's remove this and import the model wrapper. Let's save this. So now we still need to add the container styles for the model. So let's go into the model wrapper, and here let's add flex 1 so that it takes full space. We're gonna have a padding top, but it will be dynamic for iOS and Android. So let's create a variable here is iOS. This will be true if the platform.os equals to iOS. And if the current device is iOS, this will be true. And if it's an iOS device, we are going to use spacing Y of 15. But if it's an Android, then 50. Same for the padding bottom. If it's an iOS device, this will be spacing Y of 20. And for Android, it's going to be spacing Y of 10. Like this. And let's save this. So there we go. Now it's looking good. So Let's go into the profile model, and here let's create a view, give this a style of container. And for the container, you can see we have the following styles: justify content, padding horizontal. So you can just copy these. Now here we're going to import the header that we created earlier, and it's going to have a title of update profile. Let's save this. There we can see the title. Now we are also gonna have a back button as the left icon on this header. So let's import the back button. Let's save this. There we go. So you can see how easy it is when we create these components and reuse them. So we don't have to create a lot of duplicate code. So let's give it a style and add a margin bottom of spacing y of 10. Let's save this. Okay. So now let's create a form for the avatar input and the name input. So we're gonna use a scroll view, and let's give this a container style of form. And for the form styles, we have these following styles: a gap between the items and a margin top. So you can just copy this. Then let's add a view, and this is going to be an avatar container. So avatar container styles. For the avatar container, we have the following styles: position relative, align self to center. And here we're gonna use the Expo image. So let's import Expo image and give this a style of avatar. And for the source, we're gonna use the get profile image function that we created earlier. And for now, let's just parse it null. Then content fit property will be cover, and the transition will be 100 milliseconds. This is just a transition when the image first loads and fades in. So for the avatar, we have the following styles. You can just copy these styles. Okay, so let's save it. And there we can see the user avatar. Now we're gonna create an edit icon button on this image so that when we click on it, it will open a gallery to update the user profile. And this will have a style of edit icon. And for the edit icon, we have the following styles. It's positioned absolute so that it shows on the bottom right here. So you can just copy these styles. And inside this, we're gonna use an icon of the pencil. So let's import the icon. Okay, so we're gonna use the pencil icon, and let's give it a size of vertical scale of 20. Then the color will be neutral 800. Okay, so let's close it and save it. So there we can see the icon, and when we click on it, it will hopefully open the image gallery, but we will implement that later. Now we're gonna add name input for the user. So let's give this view a style of input container. And for the input container, we just have a gap between the title and the input. So you can just copy the styles, and here let's add a label and give it a value of name. And let's change the color to neutral 200, like this. Then we're gonna use our component for the input, which we already have. And let's add a placeholder as name. The value will be null for now, but we will handle that later. Let's add on change text. This will give us a value, and let's just add an empty function and save it. We need to close this input component, and let's save it now. So there we can see the label and the input. Now we need to handle the state for the name and the image. So let's create a new state as user data. Set user data, and this is going to have a type of user data type. And by default, this will have the name as empty string and the image as null. So this is a different type than the user type. This just have the name and the image, you can just put all the properties that you want to update. In our case, we'll be just updating the name and the image. So here we'll have a value of user data dot name. Then here it will update the name. So let's spread all the user data properties, and then it will update the name like this. And for the image, let's use user data dot image like this. Okay, so now let's add a footer area. We're gonna have a button to update the user data. So let's add a view, give this a style of footer. And for the footer, we have the following styles: line items. You can just copy these styles from here. Okay, so inside this footer, we're gonna have a button to submit the user details. Let's import the button, give it an on press function as on submit, and let's add the style as flex1 so that it takes full space. Then inside this button, we are gonna add a typo component. This will say update. So now we need to define this on submit function. Let's create it here. This is going to be an async function. Let's just leave it empty for now. So save it. Okay, we need to change the color of the text. Let's add the color as black. And let's also change the font weight to 700 and the size as 18. Let's save this. We can just remove the size because by default the size is 18. We're gonna pass a loading property to the button as well. So let's create a loading state, which we will use later when we are updating the user data. By default, it's going to be false. And let's pass it to the button component. And when this is true, this will show a loading state. So for now, let's just change this to true. And this is how it's going to look when we are updating the user. So now we need to add the validation on these fields. Here we are updating the name, and we'll be just updating the name for now. So let's get the name, the image from the user data. We'll handle the image upload later. Here we need to make a condition if there is no name. Let's use the trim function to get rid of the spaces. And let's use the alert. This will say user. And the message will say please fill all the fields and return from here. But if we have the name, then we'll just console log a message for now. Good to go. Let's save this and see if this is working. If we update, please fill all the fields, and if we have the name and update, then we are good to go. Okay, so now we need to fill the data into this model, because right now if we open, it should show that name that is saved into the Firebase account. So for that, we need to import the user from use auth hook, and we need to create a use effect hook. So when this user state changes, we need to update the user data state. So here we will update the user data and set the name as user.name or an empty string, and for the image, user.image or null. So let's save this, and there we go. We have the name already here. So now if we open the model, it will pre-fill the properties, and we can just update this and hit the update button, and it will just update the user data in Firebase, which we're gonna handle next. So let's create a new service as the user service. And inside this, let's create a function as update user. It's going to be an async function. It will receive the UID and the data that we need to update. So UID as string, and then the updated data as a user data type, which we used earlier. This contains the name and the image, so we're going to use this. Then this function is going to return a response, and that response will have a type of a response type from our types file. So all of the responses will have a same structure. So if I show you the type, this will have a success as boolean, data, and message for each response, even if it's error response or success response. Now let's create a try catch block. And if we got any error, we'll just console log the error here as error updating the user, like this. And then we will return a response as success is false and the message is error.message, like this. Um, okay, so we need to make this of type any. And we're getting this error because we're not returning anything from the try block. So for now, let's just return a response as success true. Okay, so the error is gone. Now we need to create a reference for the user that we're going to update. So let's create user ref, and let's use a doc function. This will receive the firestore from the Firebase file, and then the path, which is the collection, and the UID. So this is going to be a user reference. Then we're going to use the update doc function and provide the user reference and the updated data. So after the user data is updated in the Firebase, then we're gonna fetch the updated user data and then update the user state in the auth context. But we don't have to do this here because we already have created a function that does that. So if we go into the auth context, here you can see we have a function update user data, which receives a UID, gets the updated user, and then update the user state in the auth context. So we're just gonna use that. So here we'll just return success true, and the message will be updated successfully, like this. And let's save this. So this will update the user data, but it's just going to update the name. We are gonna handle the image upload later. So let's just add a comment, image upload pending. Let's go into the profile model, and here let's see if this function is working. So first we are gonna start the loading, and then we're gonna get the response from this function. Let's use update user. Here we need to pass the UID, so user.uid, and then let's pass the user data, like this. Type of string or undefined, so let's just pass it as string. Okay, there we go. Now we need to stop the loading, so set loading to false, and then we need to check if a result.success is true. That means the user is updated. So in that case, we will update the user. Otherwise, if we got an error, we'll just alert the user with that error. So result.message, like this. Now to update the user, we need to import that update user data function from use auth. Let's copy this, and okay, so we're gonna use it here. And we need to pass the user UID as string. This will update the user state in the auth context. And once that is updated, we will go back. So let's define a router here, use router. And after we call this function, we're just gonna go back to the previous screen. Let's save this. And now let's see if everything is working. So let me just reload the app. Go to profile, edit profile, and here let's just update the name to Sayed Nomi and hit update. We see the loading, and we go back to the previous screen, and you can see the name is updated. And if I go to the Firebase console, okay, it's already opened, so you can see the name is updated here as well. Now we're gonna handle the image upload. So for that, first we need to install a library to pick the image from the gallery, and that library is Expo image picker. So this will open the gallery, and we can pick the image to update in the Firebase. This is just a snippet to show the gallery if we want to pick any image. Now let's just copy the command to install this library. Open the terminal. Let's just close the server and install this library. Okay, so that is installed. Let's run the project. And we need to reload the app. Okay, so now let's open the edit profile model. And here when we click on this, it should open the gallery. So first we need to import this library. Let's copy this line and paste it here. Now let's see how we can open the gallery. So this is the function that opens the phone gallery. So let's just copy this. And we need to have a function that will trigger when we click on this edit icon. So let's add an onPress method. And this will call on pick image function. Let's define this function here and paste the code here. So we need to make it async like this, and this will open the gallery and show the media type as image and videos, but we just want to see the images like this. And let's change the quality to 0.5, aspect 4:3. Okay, and if it's not cancelled, then it will set the image URI, but we just want to set the whole object into the user data. So set user data, then let's spread all the existing data, and the image will be result.asset.first object like this. And let's save this. I also want to see what type of data we get, so let me just copy this and console log it here. So let's save this, and let me just open the terminal. And if we click on this edit icon, the image gallery opens, and if we click on any image, we don't want this editing option, so we can just comment this option and it will go away. So now if I choose an image, it will be picked right away. So you can see the image is already shown, and here we can see the asset data. Here we should see the image URI. So here you can see URI is the location of the file. That is what we need. And the reason why it's showing into our component is we are using this get user profile image. And when we pass this object, if it's an object, it's going to return the file.uri property. So that's how it's displaying in our avatar component. So now we can just remove this console log. Let's save this. So now we are able to update the user data and pick the images from the image gallery. And in the next part, we're going to work on file upload using Cloudinary.